The following program is sponsored by The Greek, Ely's Radio Shack dealer at 570 Altman in downtown Ely, and brought to you as a public service by Georgetown Media in Ely, Nevada. White Pine County Tourism Recreation Board meeting, May 31st, 2023.
But I don't know, that's common house told me that. He said
This is the special meeting of White Pine County Tourism and Recreation Board. Today is May the 31st, 2023. At this time, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Hannah, would you please lead us?
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have Board Member Carson absent and Board Member Wright absent, but we do have a quorum. We'll go into public comment. Is there anyone online, Kyle?
There is not.
Okay, any public comment in the room? George, do you have public comment?
I do.
All right, welcome.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, I'm concerned that there was an update to the proposed budget that was given just day before the meeting. Open meeting law specific, at least 3 days before the meeting, the information should be available. I also have a concern, and maybe it'll be answered during discussion, why the internet connection's costing $21,000. Madam Chair, the horse sculpture located by the railroad tracks on Lackawanna Road needs to be relocated, where the sagebrush all around it needs to be removed. It is hard to see the unit. It's paid a lot of money. You may want to consider moving it across from the old Jack Rice property. It'll be more visible. A lot of money and all gone for nothing. Madam Chair, someone is putting up informational signs that the distance to each site is not being noted. If the board is financing or responsible for the location of the signs, the distance needs to be shown or stop the financing. Within 100 feet up by McDonald's, the state has a sign that gives you two options in the distance listed, whether you go one or the other. Simply stating you have an item and not saying where it's at or how far it is ludicrous. Madam Chair, proper ADA access needs to be addressed at the intersection of Center Street and Stevens, where the new track cuts across Center Street going to the Public Museum on Altman. The railroad receives hundreds of thousands of dollars from the Fair and Rec Board, and we need to address new construction and ADA compliance. Madam Chair, I've yet to see anything on your agenda in regards to Broadbent Park and the retention of the present grandstand. Again, the grandstand is a $500,000 asset. I want to know, is the city going to scrap it, or do they plan on relocating it to another location? Again, it appears that the city council is out to destroy downtown venues. First they take out the football field, then the track and field, and then the baseball diamond. All those units brought different crowds downtown, but we don't have that situation anymore. I want to remind you, the city receives 2.5% of the room tax. It's not doing anything for downtown at all. Madam Chair, I've yet to see anything on your agenda regarding Heritage Park. I remind you once again that national studies discourage the placing of schools and parks and their truck stops. The community does not need a predator's park. This board should not be supporting any entity that may attract undesirable consequences. We have enough parks. I want to remind you about that. That area needs to be used for housing. Recently, an alleged incident supposedly occurred at a business downtown without it being found factual or simply a false statement. Now the sheriff is asking the city council to consider a new ordinance. Yet nothing was considered when a young female was enticed and allegedly assaulted from an incident that began at a local truck stop. Double
That's
standard.
3 minutes. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Mr.
I'd like some answers.
So let's move on to our action items. First of all, any more public comment? Hearing none. Number 4 action items. Discussion and for possible action to approve agenda, including removal of agenda items. May I have the motion?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the agenda as presented.
Thank you.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And Judy, please note that member Wright is here. We will, at this time, hold a public hearing and take comments from the public on the final budget for fiscal year 23-24 for the White Pine County Tourism and Recreation Board. We'll open up this hearing. And do you want to have public comment before or after you present?
Let's go ahead and present.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and present.
All right, and then after that, if there's any public comment on this, that would be, we certainly would like to hear it.
All right, so if you want to follow along, the working document is up there, but it also parodies what was handed out as the material associated with this, so you could look on either one of those. Taking into consideration the discussion that was had from the tentative budget, we massaged a few numbers, looked at where we were at with our actual budget, and tried to decide if there was any other modifications or changes. So I just kind of want to go through a few things, a few highlights on this. And the first one is that the room tax, we are budgeting for an increase, a modest increase with the city and county. Parodies just a little bit of what we budgeted last year, a little bit more than what we budgeted last year. It still is a conservative estimation compared to what we're on par to collect in room tax this year. And so normally, again, we try to budget conservatively and over-deliver, and then if we have to modify or augment at the end of the year, then we go ahead and do that. So another big difference you'll see is in the fund balance, where last year we budgeted to pull 168,000 and change out of our savings to do capital improvement projects. This year, right now, we have that at zero. Even though I know that we are going to have capital improvement projects that we are going to have to probably continue from this operation or from this renovation, but right now that's held at zero. In this current state, I want to say that it proposed as a balanced budget. So the expenses and the income right now equal each other, and so if there's any modifications that we want to do during this hearing, then we'll have to make that to both income and expenses. If you go down, the payroll is the other thing that I want to note. We did actually, essentially looking back, we overestimated our payroll budget last year. If you look at where we're at, our percentages are in the 70 or 60% of what we actually budgeted. And so we did budget for increases, merit increases for employees, during this fiscal year, especially the ones who didn't get increases at the end of the calendar year, but it essentially equated the same amount. Okay, so because we overestimated our payroll budget last year, with the proposed increases, it essentially is the exact same amount of what we were budgeting for. So if you go down, one of the only places where we really are over budget, where we're going to have to augment, is in the travel and promotions. And that is because we had a month and a half of conferences, rural roundups, summits, things like that, which normally we don't have. And especially over the last 2 years, we didn't have any conferences to travel to. And it just so happened that, this last fiscal year, I don't foresee a need to increase that budget item, just because it was an outlier this year compared to all the other years leading into it. So certainly something we can discuss if you like. Bringing up the internet connection, George's comment about 21,000 being budgeted, that was grossly overestimated last year. Currently, going into the end of the fiscal, we've only spent 7,000 on internet connection. So that's certainly a line item that I'm glad you caught that. But that was something that we saw as well, that we have probably some room to play with that line item, because it really isn't $21,000 in internet. It's probably closer to about $10,000 in internet.
But expecting the fiber to be put in this year?
I think that's why we bumped it up, was because we were expecting fiber last year, so.
And it will be, yes, we were expecting it in FY23.
And the 21 was an actual quote from different companies
Right.
that for the monthly.
So it should be in this fiscal year that we get the fiber, and it's going to be considerably more.
Okay.
So I think this is correct.
Okay, perfect. Well, I just wanted to address that because that was one of the comments. Continuing on down, the taxes and insurance, for some reason, we had it budgeted last year at 17, and Jeff put it in this year for 16. I know you were talking to Alan, what do we actually,
It'll be at least, it'll be a little over 16, around there. but
so,
We
okay,
haven't gotten the final bill,
okay, but somewhere between that 16 or 17.
right?
So we probably, we might wanna massage that back up to 17 then. Going down further, historic asset maintenance, still requesting that to get bumped up to 20,000 and then to be changed to the facade improvement incentive program to partner with the city of Ely and Main Street to fund that program to help the downtown businesses. Consulting services, we reduced that to 100,000 from 125. And that is because we're gonna have less with the engineering consulting, and we're actually going to reduce our PR contracts from 2 companies to 1 company. White Pine Public Museum, the board proposed an increase to 25,000 on that one. Outdoor recreation grant increased to 65,000, and that was the percentage that the city, the ordinance that the city says that we have to commit a certain percentage of city room tax to an outdoor recreation facilities grant that we manage. And so with the city room tax going up, then that grant also would be going up. Capital improvement grants stuck the same, around 60,000. And then aid to organization is what the board actually awarded this year, 82,000. And capital outlay, that was also reduced. But honestly, it was reduced to make our budget balance, And so the numbers at the bottom, due to other governments, that is accurate reflection with the increases in the room tax. And so with that, with its current state, it is a balanced budget. But again, this would be the time where the board can kind of play around with numbers and try to make it reflect more what your goals are.
Well, because we've been so successful with the grants from Travel Nevada, in particular with the Destination Development Demonstration, the 3D grant, I think that they are helping us with the next 10-year plan. And that's why we haven't done an updated strategic plan. We wanted to wait until the research. But this reflects where we've been going, and from the last few meetings with Destination Development, what we're seeing our visitors stay here for and visit us for is where we have been focusing our money and efforts. So from my perspective, it's on a great track. It just takes to build year after year. But I'm very happy with this, and again, it all depends upon national circumstances, world circumstances, pandemics, things like that. And where we are, we have a lot of events coming up this summer. We have a new lodging facility coming on. I think that they told us through Destination Development, there are 2 ways that you can increase your room taxes, and that's through more rooms, the most obvious, or raising the room amount. And those are the 2 ways. Well, we're a pretty big bargain for rooms, as what they have certainly told us for, we are enviable, and we have price points up and down the price structure in Ely, so that's a big help too, that we're not all like the Strip on a busy weekend.
Yep,
So,
and nor do we ever wanna be a $300 a night location with $40 in resort fees and things like that.
and that's probably a cheap room.
And that's a cheaper.
Right, so I think you've done a good job estimating it, looking at the past and seeing the growth pattern. So I don't see any at all that, we have to wait for the bill from Pool Pack to know what it actually is. And the bill from Pool Pack also is reflected from the pool, if they've had any lawsuits from other people that they insure. And there's one area, Nevada, that seems to have more than its share of lawsuits that they have to pay out, that we all have to cover. And so, we'll see at the end of that where our bill is. So, I'm happy with it, and I think if we can get the fiber in, we'll be right on target with that.
Part on that one, yeah. And I know through the destination development, they're really, through those numbers and data, they're really gonna be focusing our marketing efforts over the next year. And I'm really excited about that, to have a solid budget, but then to have the help of the consultants and data to really kind of fine tune what markets are our low hanging fruit and what that messaging is that attracts them.
So, do you happen to have any idea what you've talked to them about or what they said? There is a pot of money for us at the end, and I don't know when the end is.
Their report is gonna be submitted in August. So they've got one more in-person visit. It's the week of July, I wanna say 17th through 19th. I may have my dates wrong, but I think it's like right that third week in July. It'll be a final site visit. They're gonna be bringing out some more of the Travel Nevada team. And then they'll be making their final package recommendations for the 10 years of actionable items.
But how about the money from them?
Oh, yeah. So that might be after the next group of 3
Oh, so we'd have to wait that long?
goes through the process, yeah.
Okay, well,
But in the meantime, I appreciate a healthy marketing budget to
yes, exactly.
supplement.
I'd like to know what, like the dues and subscription, what all does that go to?
Okay, so the dues, that is the Rotary, that is part of the compensation package. When we negotiated my compensation, it was, hey, I'm coming in as a Rotarian, I'd like to keep that,
Okay.
And so that's just the Rotary dues, not penalties and things like that.
Okay.
And then subscriptions, we've got certain subscriptions like our internet, our website, some of the software subscription based. QuickBooks is a subscription based, our Adobe is subscription based, things like that.
Okay, and then, you mentioned the historic asset maintenance, that's the downtown facade
So, yeah,
program?
so in the past, that line item was there to try to help preserve our historic assets, and a lot of that had to do with historic buildings, neon signs, things like that. And there really wasn't a whole lot of ideas that came out of that. Like there wasn't a lot of takers when it was billed as that. So through the work with the city to do the facade improvement incentive program, I feel like the original goal of historic asset preservation and facade improvement incentive program are pretty aligned. And so I'm just asking for a name change essentially. And then that program is managed by the city, but funded in partnership through tourism, White Pine Main Street, and City Redevelopment Fund. And then that would allow property owners to get a forgivable, no payback capital improvement loan to paint new signage, awning, architectural elements, anything to bring up the facade of the building.
Okay, and then the public art, is that to redo murals?
Yep, so the public art, that's all of our murals, sculptures, things like that, and usually we try to do one new mural where we parlay some of that with a grant, and then refresh 1 or 2 murals a year.
Okay,
And right at the beginning, next week actually, we'll be refreshing the Cattle Drive mural
okay.
that was formerly a jailhouse property.
Okay, and then a couple more, Main Street American program?
Yep, so that's the Main Street program, and that is, I believe, the 4th year that we've had that as a line item, and what that is part of the original Main Street agreement is that there was either financial or partnership assistance from the city, from the county, and from tourism, and that was to help kind of get the nest egg going. And we've certainly seen a return on investment on that $25,000. Main Street probably gets about $60,000 or more in grants annually to do different projects downtown and things like that. So.
Okay, all right, and one more thing, the consulting service, I think you mentioned this.
Yep,
before.
and so that's parallel lines, which again, that will come to an end once, the engineering part is done. But it's also the 2 PR firms that we work with, and we'll be reducing what we're doing with one of those PR firms
Okay.
going into the new fiscal.
All right. that's all I needed.
Awesome, thank you.
Sandy, do you have any questions?
I don't, thank you, I was just here taking it all in and learning.
Yeah. Marietta, any
No, no
questions?
questions, it's great, good job.
We can open it up for public comment on the budget, any items in particular? George?
Yes, in regards to the Main Street grants, what impacts were made to downtown Ely? I'd like to know, we're putting out a lot of money. You go back, what was it, 60,000? Where'd it go and where are the impacts?
It's been everything from signage to events
What events?
to all the camp,
Business promotions.
the business promotions.
We've done a whole lot of business promotion, restaurant bucks. We partnered with the chamber with the restaurant bucks. We put up signs, wayfinding signs. We write grants that help support tourism. We've done the 50 Fabulous Places travel, the guide that is out on, that's a Main Street project. So we do, in conjunction with tourism, we write grants for Travel Nevada too, and we use the money as a match.
There was incubating the film festival, the Eclipse art, and starting the branding and promotion of all of that.
And the Park to Park in the Dark.
Park to Park in the Dark was a Main Street program. So a lot of it looks like it's tourism related, but it's Main Street that's writing the grant and doing the work to support the tourism effort.
Okay, I'm not seeing the impact and I'm not hearing of an impact, and that concerns me. A lot of money going out, but I wanna see a direct.
Well, like your 50, the little booklet?
Yep, that's a Main Street
We
thing.
can't keep it in the museum, so it's doing good.
And George, you're right, I've told Main Street a number of times they need to do a better job of patting themselves on the back and tooting their own horn, because they do quite a bit in the community.
They need
But-
to talk to the local businesses, because I'm hearing a whole different story.
Yep, no, I
that's
don't,
what the
I don't
impact
disagree
has
with
to be.
that, and, you know, like I said, I feel like there's a lot of under the radar stuff that Main Street does that really should be out in the public, more being
The
celebrated.
chamber bucks affect only one entity, a private club, nobody else, and that needs to stop.
Okay.
If the chamber bucks apply to everybody, different story, but it's not. You can't do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comment? Wayne? Alrighty, hearing no further comment, let's close the public hearing and we'll go to item C, discussion and for possible action, approval of the budget for fiscal year 2023-2024. I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the budget as presented.
Thank you.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay? Motion carries. Thank you very much. This is a lot of work, Kyle.
Well, thank you, and I want to thank Jeff for crunching all these numbers and being accessible for every one of the questions that I had for him.
Yes, this is great. So, and we have our next meeting will be in June. And I believe we'll hopefully be hearing back from Pool Pack to get the draft policy updates.
Yes.
They're working on them right now, a lot of HR policies, so.
Yeah, and June will be prepared for a big meeting because we'll be doing grant awards for capital and outdoor recreation. And if there's a need to do any budget augmentation, that'll be the time when we do that as well.
For the FY '23.
For this fiscal year,
Right,
yes.
right.
This upcoming fiscal year is done.
Yeah.
We're sending that to Jeff now.
Okay, well, thank you all very much for coming. Meeting adjourned.
We have one more public comment session.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead, I'm so sorry. Any more public comment? George, do you have another?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Madam Chair, I'd like a copy of the list showing the new events. Also, there's been a contract change and this board should not be paying the dues for the Rotary. There's been a 50% salary increase, new contract. I didn't see that written in any of the new supposed paperwork. Madam Chair, have you yet received an copy of an updated inventory sheet? I'm still waiting for that. I've not received any information in regards to the Silver State Motel. You've got copies of that. I've not received any information regarding different RVs located throughout the community, whether they're paying the room tax, whether they're paying the proper fees. That goes back quite somewhat time. I've not received any information in regards to the kiosk that we have across from Sports World that's being shadowed or blinded from one side or the other. It needs to be relocated where you can see it, the traffic can see it from two different directions, not just one. Madam Chair, I've not seen where you've addressed the money that was given to the community choir for pigeon control. Again, you can't give money to a private entity. That money needs to come back. Madam Chair, the new parking lot still does not meet the minimum ADA, new construction, federal regulations. You can't ignore that. I'd like some answers. Madam Chair, again, I've asked in the past, I'm asking again in regards to information with Ed Spear, who is a contractor with the Fair and Rec Board. Does he have a state business license, home occupation, commercial location, so on and so forth? That's quite old. Madam Chair, I've yet to receive an answer regarding the payment of $64 for Doris Lawler. Madam Chair, I've yet to receive anything in regards to how many conventions were brought. You have that request. Again, how many events have been generated? I'd like an answer there. Madam Chair, at your meeting held on February 22nd, 2022, I asked that your list of bills be considered. Oh, no, I brought that up in regards to the payment for Rotary and the contract change. Again, I need an answer somewhere. I still have an ongoing concern in regards to the railroad. They get hundreds of thousands of dollars from this board, yet they don't operate under the Nevada Open Meeting Law. They haven't addressed the rumors in regards to possible embezzlement. We need to know where that money is going. If they don't want to work under the Nevada Open Meeting Law,
That's 3
they
minutes,
need to
thank
be
you.
cut off.
Thank you, Mr. Chachas.
There's some others that I'm
Okay,
still
at
waiting
this
for.
time, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
Yeah, but where's the bid? Oh, this is what you want, okay.
This has been a Georgetown production. George Chachas reporting.